Hello, my name is Kyle Kiefer, and this is Jasper Kiefer. This is my Unit 2 project for Fire Prevention and Code Enforcement 4311. This video is for educational purposes concerning fire prevention. The purpose of fire prevention is to mitigate the risk of a fire occurring in the first place and limit the fire's ability to spread. That is why one must restrain the spread of fire by preventing the fire altogether, hence removing the chance of ignition. To adequately prevent fires from occurring, we must follow the 3 E's. The 3 E's stand for education, engineering, and enforcement. The education is the first and most important E. By educating the public on what to do if a fire occurs is crucial information for anyone involved. Growing up, most people remember when the local fire department visited their school to give a class on fire prevention and safety. These classes covered things like stop, drop, and roll, if on fire, and various other tips. Smokey the Bear also tells kids not to play with matches or fire to prevent more fire. The conjunction of these two preventative techniques teaches people what can happen if you play with fire and how to put yourself out if you catch on fire. This gives a general knowledge to the audience, ensuring a reduced risk of ignition and fire spread. It is essential to teach the public about fire-resistant materials, electrical hazards when pulling too much current, and define what liquids or gases are flammable. If one knows these typical causes of household fires, they can adequately prevent the fire from occurring altogether. Therefore, by merely informing the public on said hazards, it may be the reason as to why they give something a second thought before putting themselves and others at risk. This ties hand in hand with the next E. Since the public has been educated, the public can now be engineered, which then puts a new knowledge into action. One can take various steps to put this fire prevention knowledge to use. Examples include purchasing mattresses with a lessened flammability risk. The next example is if one has many flammable liquids or materials, it would be in their best interest to utilize a fire cabinet to store said items. These examples are just 2 ways one can do one's part to use engineering as a step in the right direction towards fire prevention. The capability of engineering is endless if the person has the education to know what to do and why to do it. If we have education and engineering under our belt, the only way to further prevent fires is with the 3rd E. Enforcement. The purpose and goals of enforcement are to ensure that the owners and potential occupants know the risks they may have unknowingly created. Fire codes are typically enforced by the local fire district or the city. If broken, these codes are usually backed with a fine to ensure the point is clear. When a penalty is served for breaking a fire code, typically an individual will remember the next time they are presented with the same situation and prevent it, as they don't want to be fined again. If a code affects the bottom line, people will try to slip through the cracks. Generally, people in the modern day would rather save a few bucks than removing the risks, so codes are enforced with a monetary value. Various fire districts or cities take a different approach than issuing fines. Some places have put forward incentive programs instead. An example of various incentives to follow these codes includes a grant to replace existing construction materials with a more fire-resistant option. In many communities, the issue is the lack of personnel to perform public education or even inspections. This scenario is usually found in cities that utilize smaller volunteer departments. I have been involved in a local fire department as a lead explorer. Therefore, I have had the ability to go to the community events and inform people of the importance of fire safety, with lectures, games, and even a live burn box. Jasper. In my department, I am not the only one responsible for educating the public. The department has regular station field trips and visits to all levels of local education sites. Something interesting about our department is we have an employee who's responded to the tragic event on 9/11/2001. He goes to various locations and lectures about the event and his experience at that said event, further grasping people's attention and spreading awareness about fire safety. Every class I have had the opportunity to present has been a consistent participative crowd. Locally, the fire district will perform random pop-up inspections as well as a scheduled semi-annual inspection. As the city of Clovis is building more homes right now, a new fire station has been built for that district, and assessments of these new buildings are taking place as the houses are built. Locally, we strive to be proactive and catch a code break before it has the chance to cause an incident, as all fire districts and cities should. In Clovis, we utilize International Building Codes, also known as IBC, that define the fire resistance of materials. The IBC has released 5 ways of determining the fire resistance of structural materials, as well as determining the fire resistance of the final construction. The first method of determining fire resistance is documentation of fire resistance designs. This relies on experience with known design specifications that have been tried and tested in the past. These known designs are tested according to the ASTM E119 as well as the ANSI/UL 263 fire resistance ratings. The second method consists of code-prescribed assembly designs. This method contributes prescribed fire performance information of specific materials. The third method is the component additive method, which ascribes the values of section 722. This data is handled to design an assembly with a formula that calculates fire resistance ratings specific to wood assemblies rated for the duration of 1 hour resistance to fire exposure. The fourth method is the engineering analysis method. By utilizing this method, certified contractors can use equivalent materials and assemblies based on the fire resistance rating according to the ASTM E119, as well as the ANSI/UL 263. The fifth and final method is alternative protection under the International Building Code 104.11. If an accredited expert can produce a design that does not stray away from the code's true intent, the registered contractor or building designer can utilize any of these 5 methods to ensure codes are met. The centers that are responsible for designing these methods are the American Society for Testing of Materials, also known as the ASTM, and the American National Standards Institute, also known as ANSI. These 2 centers are responsible for the majority of fire ratings, as they are responsible for testing the fire resistance of various materials. However, they are not responsible for all fire ratings. The ending effect of these ratings is a safer building in reference to fire resistance, and therefore a safer building for the building's occupants. A community that follows the code set forth are safer communities, not only for the general public, but also for the first responders who would have to put their lives on the line to save another. This concludes my presentation. I hope it has been informative, and we can all set forth living out a safer, more educated lives. Thank you.